What up, YouTube? It's time to brew some beer. Alright, what I'm brewing today is a Irish red ale, and I'm adding raspberry. I was originally going to do it with raspberries. I was going to try and rack it onto some frozen sanitized raspberries and see what happened. After reaching out to some forums and get some advice from people who've done fruit beers like this before, seems like the consensus is to go with an extract or a puree. I really want to make sure that it doesn't come out like a wine cooler. It actually comes out like a raspberry flavored beer, but I want it to taste like a beer with raspberry flavor instead of a raspberry flavored beer, if that makes any sense to y'all. So let's get started. Y'all remember the brew house? We're gonna hit temperature shortly. I'm recirculating through the water tank here just to make sure it's evenly heated. I'm also backing this up. I got this Easy Barbecue temperature gauge. It's a multi-probe temperature gauge that I use for my smoker and for when I'm doing long cooks on the grill. And it's got 2 probes on here. It's got alerts that go to the phone. So I am going to be using this to back up my temperature gauges. This temperature gauge, if you've seen the video I made before on the cream ale, this temperature gauge is good. This temperature gauge is bum. I haven't got a chance to replace it yet. I haven't decided yet if I want to go ahead and get digital temperature gauges now or just replace this with another inexpensive regular analog gauge. 165, we're almost there. The thing I do think is going to be good for this, because I will be doing other stuff around the house, it keeps me from blowing past my temperatures on this guy, because I could set alerts on my phone and that thing will beep and go off whenever this thing hits temperature. 165, the target range is 167. So we're almost there. I've got my pots all rinsed out, my plumbing is all rinsed out. Actually, I still have to clean out my boil kettle, but I got some time to do that. So now we wait. This time I'm not going to walk away and run too much water. Mashing. Mashing. Holding bag on that side. The chocolate malt that's in this, it looks like the color might actually be a little bit darker than I anticipated. Now, I don't know if the red's actually gonna come through or not. Let's keep our fingers crossed. The mash for this is 60 minutes at 153. I'm gonna bring this water down to 155, because there's normally a 2-degree drop. And then I'm gonna drop my digital gauge in here to keep an eye on it. This guy says we're at 154, but this guy is a liar. Quick drop. Get a quick digital read on this bad boy, see where we're actually at. 156, 153. We're mashing in. So now, go to the other app, go ahead and start my timer. And as of now, we're mashed in. Let's get the recirc going. Kill the pump, change the valves. So now we're gonna make sure you're open, start pulling from, we need to close you, pull from you, and move you over churn. Got a slight drop in temperature on this side, and the issue is the flow rate. I've been mashing for 60 minutes. Temperature's held solid. I'm happy about that. I only had to come out here once or twice, and it was to adjust the flow in here. It wasn't to adjust the temperature, really. So our mash out is at 170. So we're gonna bring everything in the system up to 170, and then we're gonna drain the mash tun so we can get our first run off of work. I'm batch sparging this time, so after I drain that, fill it up with 3.78 gallons of water at 170. Give it a little bit of a mix, let it run for a little bit to clear it up, run it again. The next step is to bring the temperature up. If it's above 170, we're still gonna be all right. I've got some recipes that call for a mash out at 190, so I'm not too worried about 170. What I will do, because I gotta go back in and do some work, I will set my temperature alert on this guy to 170. Boop. My mash tun's at 162 right now. This is at 170. I think I'm gonna let it run like this for just a little bit to bring the temperature in my mash up to 170 as well for the true mash out before I run off for the boil. Coolio, everything is at 170. 170, 170. I'm gonna start the runoff. Just draining my line. This is coming off a pretty dark color. I don't know if any of the color is gonna come through for the raspberries. At this point, I'll just kind of hope the flavor comes through. I think next time if I try and do a cream ale, something lighter in color, so the fruit color will come through. It won't matter too much if the taste is on point though, but you want it to look good too. I need a boil volume of 5.75. To bring us up to that boil volume of 5.75, my second batch sparge should be 3.73 gallons of water at 170. I need 2 more gallons based on my math. Based on this math, it's saying I need 3.7. So we're gonna check my math against Beersmith math, because I don't think the grain should absorb any more water at this point. I don't know why I would need the extra water. So let's do the math. 2 more gallons. Let's check our tick marks in here, because in here we are at 5.5. So at 3.5, we should be on point. While this is recirculating, I will move my plumbing over to get the hot water underneath this guy, start bringing him up to temperature. Because I'm only gonna recirculate for about 5 minutes just to clear it up, just so I'm not putting extra grain in there. My last time I did this with the cream ale, my water was off because I ran water improperly. You guys are probably there for that. So this will be the true test now that I actually hit my numbers and my mark. In fact, let me make a note of that I can tweak the Beersmith app for my actual system so that I know exactly what volumes I gotta do on the next batch in order to make sure I'm hitting my numbers. Because I don't wanna have to do extra boil on this. I wanna do a 60-minute boil and be done. I don't wanna have to boil it all the way down and then start the boiler because I ran off too much water like I did last time. You don't wanna do a 90-minute boil if you don't plan on doing a 90-minute boil. This thing running for a minute here. Actually, I've had this thing running for 5 minutes. I'm gonna drain out the line here just like I did before to get every little bit out of here. Then I'm gonna run it off, get my boil volume of 5.75 or 5.71. I did have to reinstall my Beersmith app onto a new computer because I rebuilt mine, and when I pulled it over, I don't think it brought over all the profiles. We're almost done. 3.71 gallons would have been way too much for the batch sparge. I'd have had a bunch of extra water in here. I decided to pull my temp gauge out of retirement because now I'll know how close I'm getting the boil on this. We are at 178 right now. That way I can turn it down a little bit when I get close to the boil point, the break point, the hot break. Real close to, there it is, and there she boils. I'm sure every home brewer out there has had their share of boilovers, and nothing turns basic brew house cleanup into a serious, obnoxious evolution than having to clean up a boil oven. It's twofold. Not only do you get to deal with the fact that you got all this crap all over your floor, but it gets to get baked onto the pan for 60 minutes, because it's not like you can stop your boil, cool everything down, and clean the outside of the pot right then and there. No, you got to start your boil timer, you got to continue your boil. You just get to clear off that caked stuff. For us homebrewers know 90% of brewing is sanitization and cleaning. I'm trying to get my temperature down to a nice rolling boil. Let's get them hops in there. The additions for this recipe are pretty simple. You got 0.75 ounce of bittering hops. For the bittering hops I'm using Willamette. I believe that's how you say it. And then the aroma hops that go in at 30 is US Goldings. Once again, 0.75 ounces. So there's our bittering hops. 30 minutes left. We're going to add our aroma hops, US Goldings, 0.75. Next will be sanitizing stuff. That is time, ladies and gentlemen. Kill the flame. I will tell you, I love this Whirlpool Work Chiller combo. I've said it a bunch of times in other videos. It makes chilling this work so freaking easy. I crank that thing up on high at the beginning to drop it down quickly, and even with my water temperature not, my hose water temperature not being icy cold, it is still way faster than stirring or just waiting or using the Whirlpool chiller or using the immersion chiller without the Whirlpool. This combo is nice. And if you already have a pump, it's just 2 more ports you got to put on your boil kettle in order to be able to do a Whirlpool. Check our levels. That I don't like. 4.5 gallons into the fermenter. There's 2 ways for me to fix this. I can plus it up with water. Just run filtered water in here and get it to 5.25, because 5.25 is where I need it to be, so that when I finish off my fermentation, I actually get a 5-gallon batch. Or I can stick with it as is. The deciding factor is going to be what the specific gravity is. Got a lot of variables going on here that I haven't seen in my brew house. You know what I blame this on? I blame it on me not brewing enough. I'm getting inconsistent, and that's a problem. I'm gonna make the call right now. I'm gonna measure the specific gravity. I'm gonna see where it's at. If the alcohol, if the starting gravity is where it needs to be, if it's high, which I suspect it may be because my mash brew house efficiency is normally pretty good, then I'm gonna go ahead and plus it up with water. If it's where it should be for me to have a tasty beer, I'm not gonna mess with it. I might not get a 5-gallon batch, but at least the 5-gallon batch I get will be good. We are up and running. Good healthy fermentation here. This is day 2. I went ahead and plus this thing up with water. I wanted to get the full batch going, and when I did my calculations, I came out at a higher original gravity than the recipe called for, with a lower volume into the fermenter, which makes sense. So when I did the correction, I just added the water to bring it up to a fermentation volume of 5.25, which is where this should be, because I lose a 1/4 gallon in trub and during the fermentation process and shrinking to be able to get 5 gallons going into the keg. Time for step 2. I just pulled off a sample and my gravity is 1.011. That's actually the finishing gravity for this recipe as designed. Now it is time for me to do the next step, which is I'm using some of this Vintner's Harvest red raspberry puree. Imagine there are some fermentable sugars within this fruit puree here. I just sprayed the top here with Star Sand, just extra cautious. And I'm gonna add this whole thing. Undo your twisty pop. And then I'm gonna rack right on top of it. Really hoping that even though it's got this dark color, that some of this red will come through. Just for the aesthetics. After I've racked on top of this, I'm going to take another reading to find out what the gravity has changed to. I imagine it will go up some, and then I'm going to use that to calculate out a secondary fermentation if this continues to ferment out, just so that I can get the alcohol content correct in the final product. I don't know with the way these are preserved if there are any actual, good smell, if there are any fermentables in there. It is specifically designed for brewing, so it could not affect or could not add any more fermenting in there. And also just racking it off, enough of the yeast might have settled out that it might not kick off a secondary fermentation. But it was still bubbling even when I hit 1.011, I think that's what I told you guys. The flavor was good at that point, and that's what the recipe called for. Normally, if I was just doing the beer as it was, I would cold crash it at that point to make sure it stops fermenting. We'll see what happens with this extra fruit added. I've never done a fruit brew like this before. The timing is perfect because my grains just came for the next two brews that I want to do, which means I need an empty fermenter, and I wouldn't have wanted to have both of these fermenters going knowing that I was going to need to rack from one fermenter into another. This is perfect. I can get this guy cleaned out after this one is filled up and get this guy ready for my next brew. Just judging by that, it does not look like I'm going to end up with any red, true red coloring in the final profile of this beer. Round two. Boy. There it is, my Irish red with raspberry. This turned out fantastic. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Came in at 4.3% ABV, which is right smack dab on for the recipe. I ended up with a lower quality or a lower volume going into the fermenter, but it balanced out because the specific gravity, the pre-fermentation specific gravity was higher. So I just added water to plus it up to the proper 5.25 gallons going into the fermenter. Once I plussed it up with the water, it put it right on the mark for the starting gravity. The aroma on it is strong. I mean, it doesn't smell sweet, but you definitely can tell it's a raspberry brew. Just enough of the raspberry for you to know that it's there, but it's not real strong. It doesn't feel like you're drinking something flavored. It just has a hint of the raspberry. Carbonated this one a little bit higher because just with it being a light beer, I did like it a little bit more carbonated. The nice thing about the setup that I have, which I actually still need to do a video on for my Keyser bar, is all three taps can be set at a different carbonation level based on the PSI that I'm pushing in there, and then being able to use the flow control on the Perlick taps to make sure that it actually pours correctly. So this is a good summer drink. Even though it's dark and it looks like a darker beer, the flavor of it is light. I will be doing this one again. I am very excited about it. I don't think this keg is gonna last, so I better order myself a kit quickly because I need to do some more flavored beers. Thank you guys for watching. Take a minute to click like and subscribe. And as always, keep home brewing.